Hello and welcome to another episode of the Unapologetically Imperfect podcast. I am Michelle Lane.
Hey, and I'm Michelle Moore, and we are two real women sharing real life examples of how you can shift into unapologetically embracing your imperfection.
So get ready for your transformation. Today, this episode is all about COVID-19. And that is a very fueled topic, I understand, in these last 3 weeks of having some semblance in our lives of stay at home, lockdown, fear of getting sick, loved ones who have been sick, but there's so many elements to it that we thought it would be really a good conversation to bring into our awareness today, at least from the perspective that we're having while we help clients through some of their fears or bodily sensations that they're really going through, as well as what's real and true for us in our lives. So welcome to what might be 2 episodes. We'll start with this episode and see where we go, because I love opening conversation around anything that happens in the human psyche and the human body when they start to correlate around a real life fear. So with that, Michelle, how are you today?
Man, well, you just said what happens around like the human psyche and the human body around like the real life fear. I am well. Thanks a lot for asking. I shared with a friend on Instagram yesterday. She asked how I was, and I said the same thing. Like, I'm doing well, but that doesn't always mean that I'm happy, right? I'm doing well, and I'm also tired, or doing well and I'm experiencing emotions, or I'm doing well and I'm overwhelmed, and I'm doing well and I woke up this morning with a cough and freaked out, right? I'm like, oh my gosh, like what is this? Is this allergies or is this something else? And I'm doing well and I'm just feeling. And inside of that, that's actually to me the beautiful piece, because I spent so much of my life not feeling, or running away from my feelings, or trying to numb out my feelings. And so being in an environment where I can actually experience all of this, that is good. And there are some days that I'm like awesome and I feel really, really energized. And then other days that I feel really tired and worn down. And I'm choosing to believe that that's normal. Like that is normal, and what we can expect the body and the mind to do during a time like this.
Yeah, I love this so much. Not to interrupt you, I want you to continue to talk about it, but just wanted to interject that I actually, in the moment that you're speaking, a lot of times we converse before we jump on, not very much because we've learned to just get into the talk, but I had to check in and go, oh, I didn't just talk to you about this. Because I literally just sent, I have a Marco Polo app. I don't know if you guys use that app on your phone, because we've had so much isolation with friends and stuff. I like to see their face. And so we're actually conversing in a group so we can see each other's faces. What I shared in that group right before this was how my body felt like it just shut down yesterday for no apparent reason. And that we have been having discussions about emotions, and they have been so heightened in different ways, where clients are like, I don't understand. I'm good. Yet I'm also feeling this, or I'm having memories in our area of the fire that occurred a year ago. And those places where we've shoved some stuff aside, it's not uncommon for these big happenings of life to just flow this energetic, emotional, mental waves into our physical bodies. And sometimes they're coming up to clear out, and sometimes they're coming up for us to notice them and speak from a different place. And I have no idea if this is where you're heading in this conversation today, but it is a real piece in how we learn to maneuver those emotions, those mental shifts, those bodily sensations, and that energetic piece that always seems to get left out of the conversation, but is also such a real piece of involvement in it. So I just wanted to add that, because you're not alone, especially if you felt tired. I have no idea if it's moon energies, having had just a full moon. I like to sometimes think it is just this whole energetic being piece to our humanness in this human body.
Mm.
And just witness those waves and how we want to automatically counter it with, I'm getting sick. Oh, I thought my adrenals are falling. I'm getting sick. Oh my gosh. Like literally catching myself in those moments of, wait, that doesn't even sound, I mean, I get it and I understand why it's coming here, but it doesn't sound like it fits the puzzle. And I only know that because I've done so much of this work and am willing to open up more conversations around it. Whereas I once would have just shoved it down, like nobody wants to talk about that, or that's not important. And I feel like that leads into where you were going, and you can obviously speak for yourself in that, but it's important to acknowledge emotion. Emoting is like step one of this process without judgment. So
Yeah, I was just going to ask you. That's the last thing that I was going to say, is to ask you what your experience has been. So you answered my question beautifully. Yeah, I was a guest, like a guest coach on this self-love subscription box a while ago. And I still get emails from the woman who runs it. And I really, like, I dig her vibe. She's real, which I appreciate a lot. And it was a few weeks ago that she sent an email. And the subject line was something that intrigued me enough that I opened it, right? And it was some version of, like, nothing in my life has really changed, right? I already work from home. And I found myself, at the time, must have been probably actually even maybe a month ago, like a couple weeks in when things started, right? Michelle and I was like, nothing, like, I understand a lot of people are being disrupted, but nothing in my life has really changed. And what this woman laid out was that, like, except for, and then she listed, like, except for, I'm like, binging on social media and like diving into conversations, except for the people that I'm talking to are all experiencing these other things, except for this is going on with my kids, except for this is happening in my house. And it was almost for me like a permission. And I literally felt my body just like, oh, that it was okay for me to say, you know what? Yes, I already worked from home, and everything is different because the world is different. The environments around me are different. And inside of that, it was like, it gave me this internal permission to not, like, to be okay, but also not be okay. And I had a conversation with a client earlier today that was in the same, like, her version of a very similar story of, my business is doing really well, my kids are healthy, I'm healthy, why am I feeling this way? And that's what I think about when I hear you speak to the judgment piece, right? Like, your brain, yeah, our brain is going to make judgments. That's what the brain does. But something that's really helped me, and I shared it already here, but I want to repeat it to really isolate it, is just decide that what you're experiencing, whatever it is, and people are experiencing a whole realm of emotions, from gratitude to complete, like, panic attack, anxiety, every little nugget in between. And some of us are experiencing this range of emotions in the course of a couple of hours or one day or 1 hour. Whatever you're feeling is normal.
And it's
like,
okay. It's
yes.
okay. It's okay to not be okay. It's not okay to stay there, but it's okay to be there as long as you need to get back to okay. Right. And even in that conversation, there's a lot of loaded, like, if you're not aware of where your emotions are, but if you're choosing these other emotions and not even trying for what you might want instead, like, there's a place where that can become the norm. And right now there's so much uncertainty. we may not even know how to lean into the uncertainty and trust it. We may not even know how to lean into the emotion that's there for us because we're so used to running from it.
Mm.
And so what I've learned that's helped me so much, and what I want to just invite our listeners to just be with for at least this episode or this learning to take away is that awareness piece that it's even happening to begin with. Mm-hmm. Wherever you are in that spectrum, whether you're just starting your personal development journey, whether you've been into this transformative space for a while, our brains forget, and that often focuses on what we tell it to and then pushes everything else aside until it becomes relevant again. And so even though we may not be practicing experiencing these emotions and maybe transmuting them back into a love and appreciation, that doesn't mean that they're not real for being there. And so it might take longer than we think of. I at this moment, I forgot what your client had just said. Like, it is the judgment on how long it's taking for it to get there, or why it's there to begin with, or when we should be better. And just listen for some of those kind of responses in your mind, or the things out of your mouth where, yeah, I felt it, but now I should be over here. Mm-hmm. Or I felt it yesterday, so I'm good, so today should be different. Like, we just don't know what we're going to require. But if we allow ourselves to lean into that, so much more can happen in just recognizing when it's there and when it can release than, oh gosh, I'm feeling it, and let me go find something to distract me from feeling it, which is how I used to operate all the time, and can have tendencies to still operate. So it's about being aware of when that's running. And so what I wanted to kind of touch on, I think, for this is not only giving some tangibles on how to kind of sit in and reframe to what might be happening to our listeners out there or in those moments, but really touching on those strong things you were talking about in the beginning. You were making and statements, whether you were aware of it or not. Like, mm-hmm. I can be happy and not have a good day. I can have a bad day and feel content, and everything in between. It's important to recognize that we have an and option. And it's almost along the line, except for, I can be doing really well, except for these moments of time when I'm experiencing these other things around me. And they're almost like hand in hand, brother, sister kind of realizations and awarenesses that allow us to just step into our humanness a little bit deeper.
Amen. I love that last thing you said, step into our humanness. I was thinking when you were talking, I'm like, it's just being human. Mm-hmm. So that's why you said that, because ultimately that's what it is. And the and is incredibly important. I wrote something about that few weeks ago, because it was really, and I think that a lot of stuff that's out there is rooted in a really good place and comes from the desire to really help and make a difference. And a lot of stuff is really inspiring and motivational, right? Like, fear and faith can't live at the same time. And I was like, I disagree. Like, actually, like,
I think they can.
I get the concept of it. I understand it. And if we're holding ourselves to the expectation of all the motivational memes out there, like, you're just going to drive yourself crazy. That's unrealistic. And what you said, Michelle, that's so important is that we can't do anything about something that we don't acknowledge the existence of.
Right. And so, yes, there can be fear and faith. And this is where that comes around to that statement I was saying. The difference is, what are you choosing on a basis?
And either way, recognizing that you're choosing, even if it's not something that's feeling really empowered, when we take ownership of the fact that we're making a choice, then inside of that is the opportunity, even at an unconscious level. If I'm choosing to sit in my sense of overwhelm, or if I'm choosing, and I acknowledge this, to be in anger, like if I'm making that choice, it's something that I tell my clients is acknowledge the choice so that you can be empowered even inside of a disempowering emotion. So it's cool if I say I'm choosing to be angry right now. What that also tells me is that when I'm ready, I can make another choice. So I love that. the acknowledging the existence of, allowing it to be okay, admitting that, saying it out loud. I tell people this and tell myself this regularly. It's okay. I'm allowed to feel the way I feel in this moment. And the permission piece, the affirmation that it's okay. And then the last part of that, in this moment, also lets us know this has the potential to change. I give myself permission. I'm allowed to feel this way, whatever it is. And it might not be here forever. And that's powerful.
When I'm ready, then it can change. So much ownership, willingness, right? There needs to be a willingness to even dive into this work, to be at all interesting to those that it's meant for, right? But a reminder daily that we actually have choice. We constantly have choice. And when we're pretending it's anything beyond that, that's a moment of opportunity for that awareness to kick in, for us to check inside and not be looking externally for things to change for us to feel better. So COVID could be there and we can be thriving. COVID can be out there, so can the fear and the potential to get sick, and we can stay healthy. And all of that is centered around choice and how we choose to protect ourselves, and how we choose to stay indoors, or how we choose to be protective when we go out at the recommendations, staying 6 feet apart, gearing up, whatever is needed, because we know what we need and we're willing to give ourselves those things. And so it doesn't change if we're home and emotions here and you've got 5 family members and now you don't have space.
Right.
What is it that you need? Do you need to have a conversation about just getting a few minutes? Do you need to be aware that that's even happening? So if you're irritated, you can let people know, like, I'm feeling some irritation. It could be because we're all together, but it's not you. I'm owning my feelings so I can figure out what I need and then make the request, right? Let me just go in the bathroom for 10 minutes. Nobody knock on the door. Can you guys handle these things? Like whatever it is, or get outside, or what is it that you need, instead of just projecting onto each other with hurtfulness from that emotion that didn't get emoted, right? So I think where my brain's heading with this, and I want you to share maybe your top 3 things and what you do to shift out of a negative or perceived negative emotion, right? So if you are in that place of anger or fear or frustration or regret or whatever it is, what are the 3 things that will change that negativity for you in the process that you do, right? Like for me, it can be emoting it. It can be talking about it. It can be having conversations or jumping on Zoom in some of these amazing free groups that are all over the place right now, right? So I'll let you take it from there because I feel like I'm just chatting away.
I'm trying to see if I can put it down into 3. The first part I already shared, and that's acknowledge. I think the body is easier to catch than the thoughts. So
I like that. How?
The more that we can start to pay attention to the sensations in our bodies, that looks different for everybody. But if you're finding yourself saying something like, oh my gosh, I'm anxious, or I'm stressed out, or I'm mad, whatever the emotion is, what's going on in your body? So is your heartbeat increased? Does your back hurt? Your hips hurt? When I start to get in that space where I am experiencing overwhelm and can feel a little bit more panicky, I've just noticed in myself, my jaw gets really tight, my lower back and my hips start to hurt, and I can feel like a tension, tension, honestly, in like the center of my abdomen and the lower part of my chest. So while I might not be able to catch the thoughts that were happening, when I feel those sensations in my body, that's become a like a red, kind of like the indicator light, the check engine light in your car. That's become a check engine light for me. And then the piece that I shared about approving, like, let me just allow this to be okay, right? So instead of slipping into judgment, which is very easy for me to do because of just old patterns, and when we're in times of stress and times of trauma, Michelle, you alluded to this earlier, our old patterns are more easily accessible to us, right? Like this is another conversation for another day that we can talk about. But it's like the gate rises up on the older paths and patterns that have kind of been tucked away. And we're more easily able to access them. So for me, slipping into the pattern of negative head talk and self-talk and judgment, it's really important that I counter that. So I'm very deliberate. I actually put one hand on my heart. I put the other hand on right where my thumb would land in my belly button. I just let my fingers fall. And I just acknowledge, right? Like, it's okay. And I talk to me like I'm in the second person, right? So I say, it's okay for you to feel the way you feel right now. Like, it's okay. It's okay for you to feel the way you feel in this moment. And that's oftentimes, and if you think about your relationship with your spouse or with your kids, so many times we just jump in to fix or change or transform without acknowledging and accepting that it's there. And I don't know about y'all, please drop a comment and let me know, but sometimes I've been in a conversation with a friend or a partner, and I'm just like, I don't want to be fixed, man. I just want to be acknowledged that I'm afraid right now. Like, I know, right? Yeah, okay. Like, I know all the work, right? I know what to do. I just want somebody to say,
yeah,
right.
You know,
what I have to realize is that I got to be that person. So instead of demanding that you or my wife or anybody else step up and do that, like, fix me, let me acknowledge. So acknowledge and approve, right? Let myself know that this is okay. And then the thing that in that moment, what I'll do is I look to identify what was just happening. So what were the preceding thoughts? What was I just doing? Because frequently I'll notice that I start to feel that way. And if I pause and explore what was just going on, I was just telling myself that I'm overwhelmed, or telling myself that this is so hard, or telling myself that I'm stressed out, or telling myself that I don't have any time, or any of those stories. And when I slow down, acknowledge it to be okay, and then explore what was just going on, then I can capture the story, which then enables me to do what you shared already, which is, what am I choosing? Do I want to continue to feel this way? And then what's the truth? What's a better story?
So as you're talking, I'm noticing your number one step is acknowledge. Your number two step is approve. And I get exactly what you're saying with number three. And I'm wondering, I just wrote notes, is it accept or appreciate?
Yeah, I like it. AAA.
Is one of those fitting for the third one? Is there an appreciation in what it's bringing for you to learn, or is there an acceptance, or is it both?
I think in the approval is acceptance. I think that those two things go together.
I like that a lot, actually. Acknowledge, approve, and appreciate. So those are like three really amazing takeaways that our listeners can apply based off the way we've broken them down. And what I would love to share, and I think this would be really valid if you're up to it, for doing a 2-part in this podcast. So we start a second recording for part 2, because I want to talk about the body a little bit more. Yeah. And I'm going to jump into that because I have a take that I'd like to add in it, because I think, yes, we're talking to ourselves, but our body also talks to us. And so when we think we're talking to ourselves, we are from the perspective of, what do the cells in my body need to know right now? And I'd kind of like to open that conversation based off of this, if that would be something you're willing to do.
Heck yeah, it's what I wanted to ask you at the beginning, especially with your training in the brain spotting and what you know about and what I know about how trauma is stored in the body. And I think that a lot of times what does happen in the world is that old doors get opened, right? And
I think
I kind of highlighted that a little bit earlier. So yeah, I'm down.
I think it's worth doing. So I think for today, we're going to wrap this recording up. And let us know, you guys. We always want to know by your comments or by reaching out to us how this is resonating with you, if it's helpful. I really think those are some great tangibles that people can take away, Michelle, from your perspective on that. That's so validating and useful for just ourselves in checking in. Like, what does it mean when we check in, right? So with that, I thank you for being real and having that conversation. And I want to invite everyone to subscribe so you don't miss these weekly chats. And we really, really want to know what is for you that's real out there that we can touch upon and perhaps help you. It's like this amazing hour of just conversing as human beings and loving our imperfection, because that's what we are. And that's how we were born to be. And the better that we get, the better we get better at just recognizing and allowing that space for us to be in our humanness and this human condition, then we get to maneuver through it that much easier towards self-mastery, if that's even a finale, like a graduation. I think it's a process. It's not the destination, right? That's where that one fits in. So thank you so much. Subscribe below, you guys, and we will talk to you next time. So catch part 2.
Thank you all. Appreciate you listening. Take definitely what serves you and works for you and release the rest. This is just two people's perspective, and it does not have to be the thing for you, but allow it to be a starting place for you to explore inside of your discovery of what will.
So good. All right, you guys, we'll talk to you next time.
Bye.